Good afternoon, students. Today's topic is megaloblastic anemia. Megaloblastic anemia, you can see I have put in two cells. If you see in normal anemia, what do you mean by normal anemia? Normal anemia is when you have a normal shaped RBC. This is a discoid shape, biconvex shape RBC with trilobed neutrophil. Okay, so this is a biconcave disc shaped RBC with tri or three lobed neutrophil. Whereas in megaloblastic anemia, what happens? The size increases, so it is macrocytic RBC. You will see 5 or more neutrophils. Okay, so these are very important features. So I'll be discussing more further. Now, what is megaloblastic anemia? Megaloblastic anemia are group of anemia. So this megaloblastic anemia is a group because there are two different etiologies. The first etiology is nutritional deficiency of vitamin B12 or folate or combined. So it can either be because of vitamin B12 deficiency, folate deficiency or combined deficiency. That is vitamin B12 as well as folate deficiency. Okay, which is very commonly seen in developing countries. Similar reason being poor socioeconomic or poor dietary intake. Other is deficiency of intrinsic factor. Now, why intrinsic factor is very important in absorption of vitamin B12 and folate will be discussed further. Now, deficiency of intrinsic factor causing impaired absorption of vitamin B12 is called pernicious anemia. It is very rare in India but still seen. It is very prevalent in European descent. Now, here you can see vitamin B12 absorption is defective. There is decrease in vitamin B12 or it is absent. Okay, and then how pernicious anemia occurs, this I'll explain in the different picture. Now, megaloblastic anemia. Megaloblastic anemia are disorders caused by impaired DNA synthesis which is due to deficiency of vitamin B12 or folic acid. See, megaloblastic anemia. Why megaloblastic anemia is important for us? Because it will have a defective nuclear maturation. If there is defective nuclear maturation, if the nucleus of these cells are not formed properly, what will happen? There will be impaired DNA synthesis. This impaired DNA synthesis, what will do? It will cause lot of abnormalities. Okay, so they are characterized by distinctive abnormality in the hemopoietic precursors in the bone marrow, in which the maturation of nucleus is delayed related to that of the cytoplasm. Now, if you remember the hemopoietic stem cell, the erythropoiesis, where hemopoietic stem cells will give rise to a lot of precursors to form erythroid. So in that, all the precursors that you see, all the precursors that you see, all will be defective. If these are defective, what will happen? The ultimate value, the RBCs will also be defective. So that is why megaloblastic is important, because if there is any change, any DNA synthesis change, that will affect all the precursors and will finally affect the RBCs that circulate in the body. Since cell division is slow but cytoplasm development progresses normally, the nucleated red cell precursors tend to be larger. So why do you have macrocytosis? Macrocytosis occurs because, see, this is a normal cell. In this normal cell, what happens? You have proerythroblast, late erythroblast, and finally you have the erythroblast. In between you have reticulocyte also, but here only we are discussing these three topics. Here, if you see the nucleus also matures as well as the cytoplasm also matures. So what happens? Because it is maturing, in the very end, what happens? There is no nucleus. No nucleus is seen. The cytoplasm is seen, but no nucleus is seen. Okay. This is only in the erythrocyte. Now, when you have megaloblast, in megaloblast, what happens? During this stage, you have nucleus is immature. Okay, nucleus is immature, but the cytoplasm is mature. So there is a nucleus and cytoplasm asynchrony. Asynchrony means they are not going together. They are not going together. They are going different ways. So there is an asynchrony. Okay. So the nuclear is immature, whereas the cytoplasm is mature. So in the end, what will happen? You will have a very big cell. Okay. Because of this asynchrony, you will have a very big cell. So what will happen? You will have a cytoplasm that is well developed. No nucleus is there, but the cell size is increased. So this term was found by a person called Ehrlich. Okay. He termed it megaloblast in 1880. Now, megaloblasts are both morphologically and functionally abnormal, with the result that the mature red cells formed from them and released into the peripheral blood are also abnormal in shape, size, and most prominently abnormality being macrocytosis. So what happens? What is megaloblast? Megaloblasts are the cells. If you remember when we were discussing, see, like you have seen erythropoiesis, right? In erythropoiesis, you have pro-erythroblast, late erythroblast, erythrocytes. What happens when blasts are forming? When blasts are forming, you have pro-megaloblast, late megaloblast. So for blast also there is a similar there is a similar cycle. Okay, that is known as. In that, what happens when you have megaloblast? When you have megaloblast, if these are abnormal, so I'll just show you a picture. See, in megaloblastic erythropoiesis, what happens? You see all these cells forming, right? In these, the last forming cell is a megaloblast. If these megaloblast cells are abnormal, if these megaloblast cells that are formed here, if you have a defective megaloblast forming here, these will cause defective RBC formation. Here what will happen? These RBCs will be so big. So these are known as macrocytosis. Okay, large cell. So macrocytosis. Okay. So coming back, megaloblasts are both morphologically and functionally abnormal. So these will result in mature red cells, which when these are released in the peripheral blood cells, you will find macrocytosis. So you have an abnormal megaloblast. This megaloblast is abnormal. These will form RBCs. These RBCs that are formed when they go into the peripheral blood, they are large macrocytes. They are not small. So these are known as macrocytosis. Okay, these are macrocytosis. So these are macrocytosis. Okay. So in megaloblastic anemia, if you see a blood picture, you will see macrocytes, big cells. You will see delayed maturation of erythroblast. Delayed maturation of erythroblast, you will still see the presence of nucleus, and here the nucleus is not as a whole. It is disintegrated. Okay. So you see macrocytes as well as you see this delayed maturation of erythroblast. You see nucleuses. Okay. Here you can see the nucleus and cytoplasm asynchrony. The nucleus is immature, but the cytoplasm is fully formed. Okay. So this flowchart shows you the normal. This is your normal erythropoiesis. Normal erythropoiesis, hematopoietic stem cell. Then you have the pro-erythroblast, intermediate and late erythroblast, finally reticulocytes, and then you have a normal sized RBC. But what happens if there is a defective? If there is defective DNA synthesis, this defective DNA synthesis due to vitamin B12 deficiency or folate deficiency or due to any cytotoxic drugs or myelodysplasia, what will happen? Because of these things, you will have normal hemoglobinization. Means normal heme will be present in these, but the cell will be different. What cell will be different? You will have abnormal nucleus. You will have a proper cytoplasm. So these will finally develop into reticulocytes, which are also enlarged. These reticulocytes, when produce RBCs, what will happen? You will have larger cell. Macrocytosis is in larger cell. Okay. So because of this, what will happen? You can have elevated plasma lipid, which are seen in liver disease, hypothyroidism, alcohol, hypolipidemia, and pregnancy. This marked cytosis. This is seen in these conditions. Okay. Now vitamin B12 deficiency. Now before we go into deficiency, we need to understand what is the metabolism of vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is also known as cobalamin. Cobalamin is a complex. It is a complex of cobalt atoms situated within a covalent ring. So you have a cobalt in the center, and this cobalt is surrounded by covalent. So this forms a ring. So this structure is your vitamin B12. Cobalt atom situated within a covalent ring. This structure you might not need to draw, but you need to understand how it looks. So this is a covalent ring. This entire thing is the covalent ring, and in the center you have the cobalt. Okay. Now in humans there are two metabolically active forms of cobalamin. You have methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin, which act as coenzymes. So what are coenzymes? Coenzymes are enzymes that take part between two reactions to occur. So you can see over here, see, homocysteine will become methionine. Homocysteine will become methionine in the presence of methylcobalamin. When methylcobalamin is dead, you will have another reaction occurring. This occurs for folic acid. Okay, here what happens? Your 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate will become tetrahydrofolate. So for these two reactions to occur, you need methylcobalamin, that is vitamin B12. So homocysteine will become methionine. For that to happen, you need methyl tetrahydrofolate to become tetrahydrofolate, and this will only occur in the presence of methylcobalamin. This tetrahydrofolate will go and take part in DNA synthesis. Okay, and where do you see adenosylcobalamin? Adenosylcobalamin is seen when this happens in citric acid cycle. When methylmalonyl CoA becomes succinyl CoA, this will occur when you have adenosylcobalamin. This will help a reaction methylmalonyl coenzyme A mutase. So for this to act, you need adenosylcobalamin. Okay, so this is in citric acid cycle, where this is seen in methionine and folic acid cycle. Okay, the therapeutic vitamin B12 preparation is called cyanocobalamin. When you go to a pharmacy and you ask for vitamin B12, you can get two forms. You can get cyanocobalamin and you can also get methylcobalamin. Why you get two forms? Because methylcobalamin will directly become cyanocobalamin will directly become methylcobalamin. So you can get either this in the market or you can get methylcobalamin in the market. So I've just given you examples of what in these two drugs you get direct cyanocobalamin. Okay, but you can also get other dietary supplements as methylcobalamin. Methylcobalamin is present as an oral medicine, as an oral spray, or even as an injection form. Okay, so the dietary supplement vitamin B12 is usually present as cyanocobalamin, a form that the body readily converts to form an active form of methylcobalamin and deoxyadenosylcobalamin. Okay, so you can get two forms. Now, what are the sources of vitamin B12? The sources of vitamin B12, only dietary sources of vitamin B12 are animal proteins. These animal proteins includes kidney, liver, heart, muscle, meat, fish, eggs, cheese and milk. Okay, and cooking has a very little effect of vitamin B12. So if you cook all these things, you will not lose a lot of vitamin B12. Okay, vitamin B12 is synthesized in the human large bowel by microorganism but is not absorbed from this site. So when you go to the large bowel, what will happen? You will find vitamin B12 and there will be some action of microorganism. Okay, so what happens? This is synthesized over here. Okay, but this cannot be absorbed. It is not taken into the body. Okay, it is synthesized, means it is made over here, but it is not taken up by the body. So that is why whatever dietary intake you take, that dietary intake will help the body to absorb all the vitamin B12. Okay, so the human are entirely dependent on the dietary sources. So whatever diet you take, that is what will go into the body. Okay, the synthesis, the small amount of vitamin B12 that is made in the large bowel by the microorganisms cannot be absorbed in the body. Okay, so the average dietary the average daily requirement of vitamin B12 is 2 to 4 micrograms. Okay, so I've shown you all the sources, the vitamin B12 sources. There can be some vegan sources. Vegan means these people who do not take any dairy products or any non-veg. These people will have to take fortified food. Means what? These cereals or yogurts or milk and food, this all have addition of vitamin B12. So in these you will find methylcobalamin added to all these things. So these are known as fortified. Okay, and you need to know the functions of gut bacteria. This is a different topic, but still this is very important. Okay, one among the functions of gut bacteria is to form vitamin B12. See, you can see one of the function is to make vitamin B12. Okay, but this is very less amount which cannot be absorbed. Okay, now coming to vitamin B12 absorption. How is vitamin B12 absorbed? See, when you take vitamin B12 in diet, okay, when you take vitamin B12 in diet, it is always along with a protein. You don't take a direct vitamin B12. So example, you're taking a piece of liver. In that piece of liver you have vitamin B12. So when you eat it, your salivary gland will release a protein known as R binder. This R binder protein and vitamin B12 will, along with the protein, will go into the stomach. Here when it goes into the stomach, there are two types of cells. You have a gastric cell and you have a parietal cell. So what happens? This gastric cell will secrete pepsin. This pepsin will break down the protein. If it breaks down the protein, what will happen? Only vitamin B12 and R binder will be there. So these will flow. Okay, these will flow from the stomach into the duodenum. Okay, and during that process, the chief cells will secrete intrinsic factor. Chief cells are also known as parietal cells. These parietal cells will secrete intrinsic factor. This intrinsic factor will also flow and go to the duodenum. Here what happens when it reaches the duodenum? The pancreas will release a protein called protease. This protease will take up the R binder protein. So what is left behind? Vitamin B12 is left behind and intrinsic factor is left behind. So both of them form a complex. That complex will now flow into the ileum. In the ileum, it will enter the enterocyte. When it enters the enterocyte, you can see a larger picture over here. When it enters the enterocyte, you have a receptor. In that receptor, the intrinsic factor will go and bind into the receptor. So what enters inside the cell is only vitamin B12. Okay, and that vitamin B12 will further go into the portal, will enter in the portal vein. How it enters the portal vein? It requires another carrier known as transcobalamin 2. So the carrier as well as vitamin B12 in the portal vein will go into the liver, and from there it will go to the bone marrows, it will go into the portal circulation, then go into the bone marrows, and then go inside the cells. So that is what I have tried to explain over here. When you take that vitamin B12, it's in the form of protein. Vitamin B12 and protein binds with a protein called R binder, which is secreted from the salivary gland. This vitamin B12 protein and R binder travel through the esophagus into the stomach. In the stomach, you have gastric cells and parietal cells. In the stomach, protein is dissolved by HCl and pepsin and releases vitamin B12 R binder, which goes into duodenum. The intrinsic factor is also released in the stomach and goes into duodenum. Here the pancreatic enzyme protease is released, which splits vitamin B12 and R binder. Vitamin B12 and intrinsic factor will become a complex and travel into the ileum. In the ileum, vitamin B12 and intrinsic factor reaches the mucosal blush border epithelium. Intrinsic factor binds with the specific receptors and vitamin B12 is absorbed into the cell. If an intrinsic factor therefore will act as a cell directed carrier protein. So what happens? It is a carrier protein which is cell directed. Okay. Now after several hours, what happens? This intrinsic factor is destroyed and vitamin B12 is released. This is released and transferred by another transport protein known as transcobalamin 2. Okay, the vitamin B12 transcobalamin 2 complex is finally secreted in the portal circulation, from where it reaches the liver, bone marrow and other cells. Okay. Now tissue stores. Normally the liver is the principal storage of vitamin B12 and stores about 2 milligram of vitamin B12, while other tissues like kidney, heart and brain together store about 2 milligram. So the body stores of vitamin B12 are adequate for 2 to 4 years. So since they are adequate for 2 to 4 years, you will not see vitamin B12 deficiency instantaneously. Like if a person's vitamin B12 is less, that does not mean that in the coming 2 to 3 or 4 years he'll show all the signs and symptoms. Because it has stores, the body is getting vitamin B12 from these stores. Okay. So the major source of loss is via bile and shedding of intestinal epithelial cells. A major part of the excreted vitamin B12 is reabsorbed in the ileum by the intrinsic factor, resulting in intrahepatic circulation. So what happens? From the diet you're taking vitamin B12, this vitamin B12 is going by portal circulation. By portal circulation it enters the liver, where it is stored. Here it is stored, you have 2 milligram, and then from this it goes to the brain, it goes to the kidney, it goes to the heart, it goes to the brain. Okay, so together these also have 2 milligram, also store 2 milligram. So the total body store including this and the liver is 3 to 5 milligram. Okay, so this will be released into the circulation whenever it is needed. So what happens is, you need to understand how the biliary channel works. Whenever anything that is in the liver will be excreted as bile salt or as bile, that bile goes into duodenum, and from the duodenum it goes and travels, and in the duodenum there are 2 pathways that can happen. It can either go into the large intestine and can be defecated as feces, or it can also enter into intrahepatic circulation. When it enters into intrahepatic circulation, what happens? In the terminal ileum you have the intrinsic factor. These intrinsic factor will absorb some of the vitamin B12 and again via intrahepatic circulation will again be stored in the liver. So what happens? As bile it is secreted, it goes into duodenum. In duodenum it can either enter the intrahepatic circulation or enter the large intestine and be a part of the feces. Okay, now the functions of vitamin B12. Why vitamin B12 is important? Because it is helpful in the formation of red cells in maintaining a certain nervous system, that is your brain and spine. So what happens? These are protected by vitamin B12. Their functions are protected by vitamin B12. Okay. The functions of vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 will act as a coenzyme for 2 very important biochemical reactions. First is your methylcobalamin will act in methylation of homocysteine to methionine by methyl tetrahydrofolate. The homocysteine and methionine reaction is closely linked to folate metabolism. Okay, so we had earlier seen, and again we are seeing this, homocysteine will become methionine. For this to occur, you need methyl tetrahydrofolate to reduce to tetrahydrofolate. Okay, this will only happen when you have methylcobalamin. Okay, and this happens in folate synthesis. Okay, in folate synthesis you will see this. So what happens? Homocysteine will become methionine, and for this you will have to have a reduction of methyl tetrahydrofolate to tetrahydrofolate. This will happen when you have the presence of methylcobalamin, this which is an active part of DNA synthesis. Okay, now when this reaction is impaired, so what happens? Folate metabolism is derailed. So what will happen? If this does not happen, what will happen? You will not have folate synthesis. No folate synthesis means no DNA synthesis. Okay, so secondly is adenosylcobalamin. So adenosylcobalamin, where it is found, already discussed, in the citric acid form. In citric acid cycle, what happens? Propanol CoA will become methylmalonyl CoA. This methylmalonyl CoA will become succinyl CoA. For this to occur, for methylmalonyl CoA to become succinyl CoA, you need adenosylcobalamin. If you don't have adenosylcobalamin, what will happen? This propanol, this stage will become stagnant. So if this is not present, what will happen? Propanol CoA will become methanol CoA, and this will become abundant. There will be increase of here. So what will happen? Neuronal lipids will be, you will have, this results in synthesis of certain fatty acids which are incorporated into neuronal lipids. So what happens? You have lot of fatty acids. These fatty acids will go and bind into the nerves. Okay. Now coming to folate metabolism. Folate or folic acid, this is a yellow compound. It is a member of water soluble B complex vitamins So you need to know vitamins can be water soluble or non-water soluble. So in the water soluble compound of vitamin B, you have folic acid. Okay. So the chemical name of folate is also known as stearoyl glutamic acid. Folic acid does not exist in nature, but exist as folates. Okay. So folic acid is not naturally seen, but it is present as folates. That also in the form of a polyglutamate form. Okay, so folic, you can, if you read your biology, you will not say folic acid, but you will see folates, and these folates that are present in your body are in the form of polyglutamate form. Okay, so this is something that you need to understand. So when you take dietary folate, if you take this dietary folate are in the form of polyglutamate. This polyglutamate will become monoglutamate, and when they enter the intramucosal metabolism, that is when they enter inside the intestine, these folates will become dihydrofolate or tetrahydrofolate. Okay, and this tetrahydrofolate will become methyl tetrahydrofolate, which is very important because this will go and be stored. Okay, so this will become a storage form. Okay, so what happens is your polyglutamate should be reduced to dihydrotetrahydro form. So we have seen here how it happens. Your polyglutamate will become monoglutamate, then will become dihydrotetrahydro, and then will become methyl tetrahydrofolate. Okay. What are the sources of folic acid? The main dietary sources are green leafy vegetables. See, vitamin B12 was an animal source, whereas here it's a vegetarian source. Okay. So you have vegetables, fruits, some amount of non-veg such as non-liver, kidney, and to lesser extent muscle, meat, cereals, and milk. Okay. So I have put here the sources where you can see high amounts of folic acid. Here you can see cooking can destroy folic acid, whereas in vitamin B12 cooking had less effect. Here cooking and canning can affect the folic acid that is there in the products. The small amount of folate synthesized by bacteria in the large bowel is not available to the body because its absorption takes place in the small intestine. Thus, humans are mainly dependent upon diet. So, the same thing that we see in vitamin B12. It can be synthesized in the body, but it is not available for absorption. So, you are dependent on dietary sources. So, the daily requirement is 100 to 200 microgram. Why you have a large amount for daily requirement? Because the storage of folic acid is only 4 months. Okay, whereas vitamin B12 was 3 to 4 years, here it's only 4 months. Absorption and transport. Folate is normally absorbed from the duodenum and upper jejunum, and to a lesser extent in the lower jejunum and ileum. So mostly the duodenum and upper jejunum. Okay, now however, absorption depends upon the form of folate in the diet. What it means, say, if you remember the previous thing, what enters inside the intestine is your dihydrotetrafolate and tetrahydrofolate. So the other forms are outside the intestinal lumen. Okay, so intestinal lumen, in the intestinal lumen, here intestinal lumen you have the polyglutamate form. But when it enters inside the intestine, it is dihydrotetrafolate or tetrahydrofolate. Okay. So in the diet, you have polyglutamate, which becomes monoglutamate, and this will become tetrahydrofolate. This tetrahydrofolate becomes methyl tetrahydrofolate, goes into the portal blood and then enters to the liver. Okay. So what happens? This is outside the intestine. This is outside intestine, but this is inside the intestine. Okay. Intestine, that intestine, what I mean is small intestine. Okay. Now coming to the tissue stores. Now where folic acid is stored? Okay, liver again. Liver and red cells are the main storage for folate, largely as methyl tetrahydrofolate. Okay, which I had shown you. From tetrahydrofolate becomes methyl tetrahydrofolate. That methyl tetrahydrofolate is your storage form. So you take as diet, poly becomes mono. When it enters here, it becomes tetrahydrofolate. That tetrahydrofolate becomes methyl tetrahydrofolate. This methyl tetrahydrofolate will go to the liver, and this will in turn go to the cells. Okay, so the total body store is 10 to 12 microgram. Okay, and the storage is only for 4 months. Okay, only for 4 months. Normally folate is lost from sweat, saliva, urine and feces. Okay, now coming to the functions of folic acid. Folic acid or folate plays an essential role in cellular metabolism. It again acts as a coenzyme for two important biochemical reactions by a process known as the 1 carbon unit. So there is a transfer of 1 carbon unit in this two process. Okay, so what happens is, number one is your thymidate synthase. In thymidate synthase reaction, what happens? There is formation of, the formation of deoxythymidate monophosphate from deoxyuridylate monophosphate. So this reaction to occur, you need folic acid. Here you need folic acid. Okay, you require folic acid. If you don't have folic acid, what will happen? This reaction will not occur. So this reaction is your thymidylate synthase reaction. Okay, this again will take part in DNA synthesis. The second one is methylation of homocysteine to methionine. We are again coming back to this thing because this particular reaction requires both vitamin B12 as well as folic acid. So your homocysteine to methionine will require vitamin B12 and will also require folic acid. Why you require folic acid? Because this methyl tetrahydrofolate will have to become tetrahydrofolate. Only if these two reactions are occurring concurrently, homocysteine can become methionine. Okay, so these two reactions are very important. And here what happens, for these reactions to occur, 1 carbon unit has to be transferred. Okay, see, what is the biochemical basis of megaloblastic anemia? The basic biochemical abnormality common to both vitamin B12 and folate deficiency is the block to the pathway of DNA synthesis. So what happens if you have deficiency of vitamin B12 as well as folic acid? Both can cause deficiency in DNA synthesis formation. Okay, so the folate as coenzyme methylene tetrahydrofolate is required for transfer of 1 carbon moiety. So what happens is, when you have methylene tetrahydrofolate, this methylene tetrahydrofolate will have to become tetrahydrofolate. So what happens is, you have tetrahydrofolate. Okay, so this is dihydrotetrafolate. When you take in diet, if you take in diet, what happen? You will have a poly, you will have mono, and when it enters the intestine, you have dihydrotetrafolate. This dihydrotetrafolate will have to become tetrahydrofolate. When it becomes tetrahydrofolate, during this what happens? 1 carbon is donated from serine or glycine. Okay, these amino acids will donate 1 carbon atom. This 1 carbon atom will change tetrahydrofolate into methylene tetrahydrofolate. It will take a 1 carbon atom. Okay, because of this taking up of 1 carbon atom, this will now help in this reaction. So methylene tetrahydrofolate, this methylene tetrahydrofolate will now take part in a reaction where deoxyuridine monophosphate will deoxyuridine monophosphate will give rise to deoxyuridylate monophosphate. So this is 1 carbon metabolism that happens. Okay, so in this metabolism, 1 carbon from serine or glycine is transferred to tetrahydrofolate to form methylene tetrahydrofolate. So two of the important folate dependent 1 carbon reactions are thymidylate synthase reaction and homocysteine methionine reaction. So we have explained the thymidylate synthase reaction here. Okay, now where else it is seen is homocysteine and methionine. Here what happens? For homocysteine to become methionine, it again requires your methyl tetrahydrofolate, and this methyl tetrahydrofolate, how it is formed? It is formed by 1 carbon metabolism. So this occurs. So this one methyl tetrahydrofolate forms a part of the thymidylate synthase reaction as well as homocysteine methionine reaction. Okay, come. So I'll again just recapitulating what we had studied over here. The thymidylate synthase reaction. This reaction involves synthesis of deoxythymidylate monophosphate from deoxyuridylate monophosphate. So DUMP will become DTMP. Okay, the methyl group of DUMP and DTMP reaction is supplied by coenzyme methylene tetrahydrofolate. So you have your methylene tetrahydrofolate. Okay, so you need methylene tetrahydrofolate. So for methylene tetrahydrofolate, you require a methylene donor. This donor is by serine or glycine. Okay, drugs like methotrexate, and so any methotrexate or antimalarial drug will inhibit a very important reductase enzyme. Okay, DHFR. So if DHFR is inhibited by methotrexate antimalarial drug, what will happen? You will not have methylene tetrahydrofolate. If this is not there, what will happen? This reaction will not take place. If this reaction does not take place, no DNA synthesis will occur. Okay, so you need to know, if you give these two drugs, anti-cancer, anti-malarial drugs, you can have this side effect. Okay. Now coming to homocysteine methionine reaction. In homocysteine methionine reaction, what happens? Homocysteine is converted to methionine. For this to happen, again you require the one common important is methylene tetrahydrofolate. How this is formed? This is formed by 1 carbon metabolism. Okay. So for this reaction you require vitamin B12 as well as folic acid. How folic acid? Because of this. This is a part of folic acid. So this reaction occurs. In this you require vitamin B12 as well as folic acid. So if you have both deficiency, this will not occur. Okay.